Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Introverts Edge podcast. And I have to admit, I am ecstatic to introduce my next guest. I interviewed him on a summit that we recently did, and he was just phenomenal, sharing his experience in speaking, in so many leadership focuses as well. And I wanted to get him on because he's an introvert. You're going to find it hard to believe, but we're definitely going to get into his personal story. But he is a Nevin Award winner, which is actually is the highest award as a speaker you can get in Australia. He has had 387 clients in 41 countries, and he's spoken in front of 1.7 million people. But what I think is pretty impressive about Keith, because a lot of people speak at events all the time. Now, surely not as many people, not as many clients, and not as many countries as Keith. But the thing that I think that's most impressive about Keith is the fact that he's able to have clients keep coming back for him. I mean, 96% of his clients have hired him a second time. 64% have actually hired him 6 times or more. And 31% of his clients, and this is an almost impossible to believe statistic, but the truth is, once you hear from him, you'll understand why. 31% of his clients have actually hired him over and over again over a decade. So one of the things that I know that the introverts listening to this episode are going to always be thinking is, I don't know if I can be a successful speaker. And gosh, if they have me once, they're not going to have that introvert back twice. I want you to know that's not true. And there's no better person to share that than Keith. So Keith, welcome to the show, mate. I'm ecstatic to have you with us.
Thanks, Matthew. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and my fellow introverts, by the way, as well. So it's great to be on the edge.
Well, look, I will say that, I mean, you've got a really impressive story, and a lot of people see you as literally the person that teaches speaking in Australia to other professional speakers. The truth is, though, that most people are going to find, I'm always talking about how people project extroversion on anyone that's successful. And someone that's got, I mean, you only have to read your bio for about 5 seconds to go, okay, this guy's in a league of his own. Clearly, he must have had a natural gift. So I want to really go back to kind of the younger years of Keith. When did you start to realize that you were an introvert yourself, or did you always kind of know? And kind of where was the point where you sort of started to take charge and decide that you wanted to be a professional speaker?
Yeah, good question. Like, I really, I grew up in a family with a brother and 2 sisters, so 4 of us in our family. But there was a big gap between myself and my brother, and so I was sort of like a lonely or only child. And you know what? I was okay with that. I was okay with doing my own thing. So not that I realised it then, but it was probably when I first went to a leadership program that you had to stand up and present something, and I was exceptionally nervous and actually didn't want to do it. And then it was funny. It was something I didn't want to do, but when I did it, I enjoyed it. And then when I was asked to do it again, I didn't want to do it. But when I did it, I enjoyed it. And it was this internal conflict, which was really about probably me starting to come out of my being an extrovert. And the more I stood up and shared, and at that stage, not professionally or anything like that, I was 24 and 24 years of age, and really had no drive and desire to do too much at all with my life. But it was that experience that I went, maybe I can do something a little bit different here. Maybe I can just, regardless of whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert, I can actually start taking control of really what my destiny is, and actually started to find a passion and a purpose about my life.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Keith. And I think one of the things that comes up a lot I find this all the time. Introverts say, I want to start a business, or I want to be a professional speaker. And it's not that I don't believe introverts can do it. As a matter of fact, I believe introverts make the best salespeople, the best networkers, the best public
Correct.
speakers. And I mean, you
Correct.
don't have to look far to see $1 billion business that was founded by an introvert. But the thing that I find is that the people that found those, the people that started those, or the people that endeavored into those careers and became successful, you can tell the pain for them was worth the gain. And for a lot of the people that I speak to that aren't successful, you can always tell that there's just something, the fire in their belly isn't there to go and make it happen. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of introverts that don't know they can succeed in those fields. But I'm talking about the people that are starting up their own businesses anyway, or they're going into those careers, but they're just accepting subpar performance. And I know that you're very big on connecting with passion and what really sets you alight. So I know you talk about, a lot about, the how over the why. Would you
Yeah.
would you mind imparting that with the audience about why that's so
Sure.
critical?
Yeah, love to. So here's my belief. A lot of people talk about start with why, and it's, to be perfectly honest, Matt, it's too hard. To find your why, you got to go and sit in the middle of a rainforest on a rock for 2 weeks to work out what your why is, and of course some people use that then as a bit of an excuse. Oh, I don't know what my why is, and so here's what I say to people: is don't start with why, start with how. You see, and this is based on 9 years of research that we've done, where we go, as an adult, you can experience 135 different emotions. 64 of them are positive, the rest are negative. Of those 64, they break down into what we call and determine to be goal drivers. They're the reason that somebody will get out of their comfort zone, that will face their fear. They're the reason why somebody will become committed, compelled, and connected to a goal or to a purpose. And so one of the things we say to people is start with how you want to feel first. So if you're an introvert, you're an extrovert, if you want to build a business, if you want to become a speaker, if you want to become a leader in your organization, ask the question first, how do you want to feel? And there are 8 drivers. People want to feel successful. People want to feel purposeful. People want to feel inspired. People want to feel happy. People want to feel organized. People want to feel respected. People want to feel confident. People want to feel relaxed. And each of those 8 have a reason behind them. The people who want to feel successful is about momentum. The people who are around purposeful are legacy. And there's a whole area of body of work that we've done around this, including building a diagnostic tool that actually measures what is driving people. And so when you start with that, then you can say, so let's say you want to feel confident in the role that you're in so that you can progress through your career and become a leader. You go, okay, so I want to feel confident. So now, Matthew, you ask the question, what goal do you need to achieve in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? What goal do you specifically need to achieve for you to feel confident? Not what goal do you need to achieve to increase your bank balance? What goal do you need to achieve for you to feel confident? And you write that down specifically. And then the next question you ask then is you then ask the why question. But it's not like, what's my why? It's, why is that so important to you? And unless you can come up with 5 reasons why, any excuse will do. Too hot, too cold, too many, too few, too little, too much, too hard, too easy. I'm an extrovert, Keith. I'm not, I'm an introvert, Keith. I'm not an extrovert. Any excuse will do. And then what circles all of that, and we were talking about this before we jumped on air, is the reason why I've achieved everything in my speaking business, the reason why you've achieved everything in your speaking business, the reason why I've achieved everything in my personal life, the reason why you've achieved everything in your personal life is because we have always been humble enough, and this is the quality of an introvert, we've always been humble enough to seek out who's. Who can help me? What book do I need to read? Who do I need to talk to? Who could be a good mentor for me? Who is someone I need to listen to on a podcast? So we have sought out who's that have helped us on that journey. And so when people put that into a package, and I know I've spent a little bit of detail on this, but in essence, we've spent about 4 minutes and people go, oh, that makes sense. I could do that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I will say that I see a lot of people that, one of the jokes I make all the time is I get people to set goals. And I'm like, the goals are really a mean to an end. I need you to write why the goals are so important. And they really struggle to answer that. But I'm like, look, you got to understand, people inherit their goals from their mother, their father, their drunk roommate they had in college. They hear these things and they run after them and they don't really think them through. And if they come back and decide what's really important to them, then the next thing you have is very practical and logical answers, which again
Yeah.
aren't going to set the fire in their belly the way that it should. So I start asking questions about what change do you want to see in the world, or what group of people need your help most. And then all of a sudden, they start to think externally. And then you start asking them to set goals associated with that. And they're like, well, but then I don't have these skill sets, or I can't do these things, or I have these imposter syndromes. It sounds like that would fit directly into what you're highlighting. Okay, so what would you need to feel like this? What would you need to feel like this? And then you can set really micro goals. And what I love about what you've highlighted is micro goal setting, because I think people set these really outlandish goals and they're so used to not hitting them. So they just keep setting outlandish goals and then never hitting them. What you're highlighting is set these really micro goals about hitting this target to feel confident, hit this target to feel like
Correct.
you're excited about
Yes.
something. And I think that's a really powerful technique to utilize. One of the things gosh, I wish I could go deeper into this, and I would love for you at the end, if you've got this diagnostic tool, Keith,
Yeah.
if perhaps you'd be open to sharing it with the people
Sure.
in the audience. I
Yeah.
I really wanted to spend a little bit of my time though going into you as a professional speaker, because
Yeah.
I know for me, and people have heard my story, and I know that every introvert has their own story for how they get up on the stage and how they feel comfortable and what rule sets make them feel comfortable. And I'd really like, because especially with the number of times you've been welcomed back, that doesn't come without being authentic on stage. And a
Correct.
lot of people do show up, but they show up inauthentically because they feel like they need to behave like an extrovert. So I'm really interested in some of the lessons you learned as you gravitated onto the stage as an introvert, and how you navigated doing it while still staying true to yourself without that big introverted protection guard coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question, Matthew. For me, it's always been about preparation. So I just make sure that I'm really prepared and I'm organised. And the second thing is that I spend the time and I connect with the key people in the organisation, and I start conversations not as an extrovert, not as an introvert, just as a person, because at the end of the day, like you do, you ask good quality questions. And the one great trait of introverts is that we are very good listeners. We become good listeners because we're not seeking the attention. So we're not seeking to be the center of attention. We're great observers. We're great listeners. And so when you start, for me, I think after doing this for 28 years, the ability for me to listen to a client and sort of go, I know exactly what they need. I know exactly what the challenge is or what the opportunity is, and to be able to share that back to them, and they go, yeah, that's exactly it. Because at the end of the day, people buy people. People buy, the people who keep on using me are people that I've built a relationship with. And so, if there's a great skill for any professional speaker, it's always about, yes, be great on stage and have wonderful content, but be, as you said before, be the real authentic you. What people get on stage is what they get off stage. There is no difference. And in this world now, I just think the value that people are looking for is authenticity. They don't want someone who is incongruent. And the more authentic you are, the more valuable you are, and in essence, the more consistent you are as well, with clients and with audiences, and the better you connect.
I think that's a powerful thing to say, because and let me frame it this way. I'm sure that the amount of effort that you have to put into doing that now, because of the number of events that you've spoken at, it takes a lot less time. I know for myself, when I speak at a group of technology people or in the hospitality industry or in finance, I've spoken at so many of those events. I'm looking for the subtle differences, the culture, things like that,
Yes.
but I don't have to
Yeah.
research the entire marketplace and understand it. But I feel like a lot of emerging speakers, especially, they kind of start from a place of, well, one day I'm going to be doing 200 events a year, so I can't be doing all this crazy research. For me, I find that if I'm in a new industry, I'm doing obsessive amounts of research, understanding the background. So when I do my meeting a month before, I'm asking detailed questions so I understand it. Because I'm not getting on stage unless I know why they need me there and exactly how to fix their problem. And I feel that allows me to show up authentically. And I feel like what you're highlighting is that for the people that are listening, what you've just basically said is they can't show up on stage authentically unless they've done their homework.
Correct. Well, the real key here is that the more research I do, the better I understand the client. The better I understand the client, the more trust, rapport, and credibility and likability that I can create with that audience. Because nobody wants to hear a speaker that talks about and your customers, are really important, and it's a financial planning group well, they don't have customers, they have clients. And it's those little subtleties that you pick up, and even the language, I've done a lot of work in the car industry, and I've done, worked 24 years straight with Toyota and Lexus globally. And so I know that industry really well. And when you turn up and you start sharing your ideas and insights with them, and all of a sudden you start talking to people at the back of the room, and they go, well, how long have you been working for Lexus for? Well, I don't actually work for Lexus. I have my own business. Geez, you sound like us. That is the compliment. And the reason why, the real measure of any great professional speaker is just two things. It's not about standing ovations. It's not about, I spoke to 10,000 people, or, they flew me to Cancun to speak at their international sales conference. It's not that. I mean, that's lovely, but that feeds the ego. If you're truly coming from your heart, it's about, does the client return and do they recommend? If my client keeps on coming back and using me, I am of value. And if they recommend me to other people, I am trusted. And so, and by the way, what are the byproducts of that? Sustainability in the industry and profitability in your business.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think a lot of people that hear about the speaking business, they think I write a speech and I deliver that speech and I talk at people. What I'm hearing from everything you're saying is you consult beforehand, you research, so that when you're up on stage, even if you're speaking to people, you're almost meeting them where they are by using the language they understand and speaking about the problems as they understand them. And because of that, they're like, well, why wouldn't I hire this person back? And why wouldn't I introduce them? Because 99% of the speakers don't do that.
Well, the old story, isn't it, Matthew? You got to meet people where they're at so you can take them on a journey with you. If you're a speaker and you stand on stage and you start, talking to them about what they should do and what they shouldn't do, and do this and do that, and you haven't truly connected with them, you haven't really identified and recognized what's happening in their business at the moment, then the relatability factor is very low, and people go, yeah, he had a good message, but it was okay. But I don't ever want that. I want people to say, wow, that was so impactful. Now, I don't think I'm saying anything different than anybody else that talks about my area of expertise around how to achieve your goals, faster, easier, sooner, better. But the difference is that when you truly understand where the client is at as a business, where the people in the audience are at, then you can take them on a journey with you. And of course, when you do that, all of a sudden people go, that was so good, we've got to have people back. I'll share one story with you. When I started doing some work with Toyota, and I must have done 5 or 6 conferences with them over about 4 years. And I was talking to the CEO of Toyota, and I said I am exceptionally grateful for the opportunity to be invited back. I said, can I ask you one question? I said, I noticed that you use lots of professional speakers, and they're all very good speakers, by the way, all very good speakers. And but I never see you invite them back like you have with me. Why is that? And they said, Keith, You took the time to read the Toyota way. You took the time to understand our business, and we like you, we trust you, and you're a safe pair of hands. We know exactly what we're going to get. So we're happy to use you over and over and over and over again because you just took the time and you feel like us. And I think when you start to, when they feel that bond and trust that you feel like them, they're always going to look to you to recognize you and to invite you back again.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, I mean, for a lot of people, they spend forever trying to get a presentation, trying to get that speech, and then they don't do the research to keep the speech. Like the easiest client to get is the one that already knows you're
When you already
good. But if
have,
you don't
yeah.
show up, yeah,
Well,
you're
it's the
100%
same in
right.
every business, Matthew. You know, most people operate on the 3F principle. You know, we find them, we flog them, we forget them. And you know, I've built my whole business around making sure I stay in touch with people and being top of mind, continue to add value. And when you do, does that take time, energy, and effort? Yes, but it's a hell of a lot less time, energy, and effort than going and finding another client, regardless of the industry you're in.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely on board with that. And I think that a lot of people, you're 100% right. They're like, well, I just need to get 60 clients. And you don't if you've got 20 clients that hire you multiple times and then you build on that because they send you referrals and you can have a really profitable business even on 20 keynotes. And I think for a lot of the people that are listening that organize events, I think that the advice you're hearing from this is if you have a speaker that if you're interviewing for speakers or you're trying to select a speaker for your event, or maybe you're on a board or a committee that is part of that, ask them the type of research that they're going to that they're going to go through before they even decide, decide on the topic that they're going to talk about from stage or how they're going to customize their presentation. And if you get a blank face, which sadly I'm going to say is going to happen more frequently than they expect, run for the hills because the people that, and I'm not saying it's got anything to do with how much a speaker charges because there are people that charge $3,000 and $100,000 that do no research. And there are speakers that charge three to and 100 that do a ton of research. It really comes down to the moral fiber and the qualities of the person about delivering that long-term impact and seeing them as that long-term speaker, which clearly, Keith, you've shown 1,000 times over, and your statistics definitely show that as well. I know we're running out of time, so I need to get to the question that I did pre-warn you about in advance, just so you had some introverted time to reflect. But I want to really understand and for those people listening to this episode or the first ever introvert episode, Introvert's Edge episode, I get sick and tired of people constantly calling introversion a negative, especially because I believe it's a huge advantage in so many ways as long as we lean into our strengths. The problem is everyone keeps talking about what we don't have, which I don't actually think is accurate. But truthfully, I feel like we need to focus on some of these amazing skills that we have. So, Keith, I'd love to ask you what you consider your introvert's edge.
Yeah, my edge is as an introvert, I love time and space by myself, and here's the reason why. It gives me the opportunity to do deep thinking. It gives me the opportunity to create content, and it gives me the opportunity to plan and prepare for what's next, my next goal, my next client, and I'm okay with time and space by myself. Every book that I've now written 6 books. Every book that I've written, I've packed up my bongos and I've gone somewhere by myself in my own space without anybody around me to write the book. Why? Because that's my genius zone. That's my zone that I go, oh, I'm just sitting with my own thoughts. I'm not, and I'm okay with it. We're extroverts. They've got to have stimulation. And for us, the ability to do deep thinking, which a lot of people don't do, when you don't have the time and the space, you can't do the deep thinking, which means you can't think big. And if you can't think big, you can't dream big. And if you can't dream big, you can't do big things.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and I think that a lot of the people that are listening see the time that they need to take by themselves as a negative thing because they're not running as fast as everybody else, and they're not doing as much. And in our, I'm going to call it instant gratification world, we've somehow fall into the trap of believing that that's important, where I'm always focused on strategy before tactics. So you take a small
Mm,
step back, slow down, completely stop,
mm,
and then catapult
yeah,
forward. And I agree
yeah,
with you. That's a huge positive that introverts by nature have the ability to do that extroverts have to really force themselves to stop and really struggle with. So I think that's a really powerful edge, Keith. I
yeah,
know we're at time, so I really want to go back to the diagnostic that you spoke about. And I really,
yeah.
of course, I'd love for people that are just hearing about you for the first time and your content. I'd love for you to suggest where they can find out more about you. And I would also love it if there is a simple way for them to find the data from the diagnostic or the diagnostic itself. Where would they go for that?
Yeah, so the diagnostic sits on a website called mygoaldriver.com. That's mygoaldriver.com. You can go there. You can do a free version, which is a 6-page version. It gives you 12 insights. You'll understand what your driver is. You'll understand what you need to stop doing. You'll understand what you need to start doing. You'll understand the roadblocks and the fears that are slowing you down. So it gives you those insights. If you want to do the paid version, you can do that, and that's a 28-page report, 135 accelerators, and 24 performance accelerators that you can do to move yourself faster, easier, better, and sooner towards your goals. A lot of people say, "Oh, is it a personality profile?" No, it's emotionally based, and there are prescriptions in there that will help you move from where you are to where you want to be. And if people want to check out my website, that's keithabraham.com, and KEITHABRAHAM.com.
That's perfect. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Keith, and everything that you've shared in today's episode. And on a personal note, it was great to interview another fellow Aussie, and
Yeah.
even willing enough, which I never do, to do the interview offsite. So I was excited about doing this one. So I'm glad we got a chance to do that. So thank you so much for sharing, and for everyone that's listening, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got value out of this episode. I know I did. I always do when I'm listening to Keith, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Thank you.